here on WRFI. But the reason why I am here interviewing Matt Kadane, who co-founded the band Bedhead and then New Year in 2000. He's also a history professor at Hobart and William Smith Colleges in Geneva, and has recently published a book titled The Watchful Clothier in 2013. Along with his brother Bubba, he collaborated with David Bazan and Will Johnson in Overseas and the long-running Chicago band Silkworm. Last year, the New Year released their latest record, Snow, after a 9-year hiatus, I guess, and following their last record for Touch and Go back in 2008. So I'm going to bring in Matt live in the studio right now. How's it going, Matt?
It's going all right. How are you?
Doing all right. It's 12 o'clock on a Sunday. I'm not usually here, so I'm just trying to get adjusted to the lighting. I'm usually here at 7 o'clock on a Thursday, my typical slot. But how's life been in the Finger Lakes? I know you've been here for a little while. What's it like here for you these days?
We like it. We moved here in 2005, and is this all right?
You can get maybe a little closer there.
Yeah,
perfect.
We moved here in 2005, and we really like it. I don't know if we would be anywhere else, and
right.
The whole family likes it now, and so we're very happy. We live outside of town, not too far, about 10 minutes outside of town. So
right. Yeah,
it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. You know, we had the same thought moving here. A different way of life, a bit. Lots of scenery, lots of outdoor. Like the summers are unbelievable. Of course, the winters you do have to take those in too. But it's a beautiful place to live.
Right, and we like winter. We like it when it snows, and we like skiing and doing all that kind of stuff. So.
Snow. We'll talk about that in a few. So yeah, I mean, I sort of want to get to the genesis of what the music you and your brother Bubba made or make. You know, my first impression of it has always been like, you know, when you hear it, it sounds almost simple or minimal. But the more I've taken it in over the years, you really start to hear, you know, so many different layers to it. I know you guys probably work really hard on that guitar interplay. I don't know. Talk about, did that come from anywhere specific, or is it just how your music evolved?
I don't know if it came from anywhere specific. I think when we said this for a long time, maybe this is true. Maybe we just started to believe this because we said it for a long time. But one of the earliest bands that we had, so this was before Bedhead, this was a band that didn't make any records, had a violin player. And so I was playing bass, my brother was playing guitar, and actually a guy named Mish McKay who played in the band Macho was playing drums. And this woman, Marty Irwin, who actually went on to be one of the Dixie Chicks, was playing violin. These were all Texas people.
Wow.
So she left because the Dixie Chicks were getting pretty big, and we couldn't keep her. You know, our coffee shop gigs for like 20 cents weren't keeping her. But we really missed that sustained sound of a violin, and we ended up playing with a guy named Chris Curtis, a viola player, for a while, and then that band split up. But we thought, well, you know, we should try to bring that sound back in. And I had a friend, Tench Cox, who was in Bedhead, who was kind of looking for something to do. And so we thought, well, if we get 3 guitars in the band, one can play rhythm on occasion, or we can all just play single notes and see if we can, create that sustained effect of the violin. So that probably has as much to do with it as anything. But when I think about a lot of the bands that I listen to, a lot of them had kind of linear guitar lines or guitar and bass interplay. And so I think those influences figured into it too. But and then we liked the way it sounded, and we liked the freedom that one of the guitar players had in the band to do other things. And we could all, I mean, we're fine on our instruments, but we're not virtuoso players, and so we could sound better if 3 guys were playing relatively simple parts on 3 guitars. It could sound like 2
more is always better.
More is always better. All right, so that's sort of how it evolved.
Well, one thing I like to ask people, like, you know, whoever they are, is like, do you remember what your first musical purchase was? Like, you know, consciously, like, I need to buy this or own this.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing I'd really want to admit. I think
that's the fun part.
Well, that's right. I think, honestly, the first thing I ever bought, it was one of 2 things. It was a cassette. It was in the mid 70s. I was probably 6 or 7. I could figure out I think it was Styx, The Grand Illusion.
Nice.
That's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If it wasn't that, it was Permanent Waves. So.
Yeah, that makes sense at the time. Okay.
Yeah, and I bought them at Sears.
Sears, yeah.
Yeah, record.
I can remember being a kid and going to Sears and seeing them, and I was discouraged for whatever reason. But I remember seeing the long boxes later. But anyway,
yeah. Well,
so yeah, Bedhead out of Texas. I mean, there had to be there wasn't many bands in your vein at that time. Was there early '90s?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
not. Truly not at all. And so we, if you think about some of the bands that were big back then. There was Butthole Surfers. There was Scratch Acid. This was pre-Jesus Lizard. But it was stuff like that, which was cool. But and we liked those people, and we liked the the infrastructure that they had helped to create, the venues, which were not always clubs. And so, that was a world that we felt a part of in almost every way. But when it came to the kind of music that we played, we didn't exactly feel a part of that world. But we played with, bands like that. And the label that we were on was run by one of the Butthole Surfers. And so we were, very much a part of that world. But, and generally we were welcomed by audiences that might have been, more there to see those guys than us, but not always. Not always.
Are you fair share of what stuff being thrown, anything like that, or is it just indifference?
Indifference in talking. The music was quiet enough that talking was would make a difference. And there were times where we would switch things around, and Trini, who played drums, would start singing, and I would play drums, and we had this kind of thrash band alter ego that we would sometimes resort to. We just couldn't take it.
Yeah,
no, it wasn't always friendly.
So I was listening to What Fun Life Was yesterday, as we just heard, and we were just sort of talking off mic about. It sounds like sort of like a lo-fi recording. I don't know if you recorded that as a band. Like, doesn't sound like it was multi-tracked or anything, or is that just how it came out? Well,
it was multi-tracked in the most insane way. We thought if we had recorded some stuff on 4-track cassette in a really great sounding room. The first 2 Bedhead singles were recorded on cassette that way, and the way we did it, I was actually playing drums with this Western swing band, and one of the guys in that band had a bunch of PZM mics that he would use to record them. And I was just struck by how great they sounded. And so we thought, well, if we get 3 PZM mics, that's better than 2. 3 is better than 2, and we'll have 3 tracks of live music from those PZMs and then a track of vocals. And so that worked. So we went into the studio to record What Fun Life Was into a 16-track studio, and thought, well, why not get 15? We had no idea about phase and any of that stuff. And so we bought one good mic with some of the money that King gave us, and then we had a bunch of condenser mics, and it's like 15 tracks of us playing live, 15 angles of the same thing. Yeah, more is better. Except when the
phasing issue. Yes.
Yeah, right. It was crazy when we tried to. When we remastered this, my brother and Matt Barnhart, who we recorded a bunch of stuff with and who tours with us, they did it, and Barnhart just thought, I've never seen anything like this in my life. Makes no sense on any level, and it was a nightmare to try to deal with. But it has that live sound because it basically was a live recording, but not single track. It was redundantly multi-track.
So let's just step outside for a second. I really have to A/B. You'd heard a show I did where we A/B records. Maybe we should A/B What Fun Life Was with the Numero Group reissue. What was how did that come about? The Numero Group series and the box set and everything.
At some point those guys contacted us and asked if we were interested in doing that, and we were. And we had always wanted to. We didn't get a chance or have the resources to really do a good job of mastering the first record. Yeah. And in the back of our minds, I think Bub in particular had dumped some stuff down to ADAT or something and played around with remixing, and thought, we don't have to do much to make this sound a lot better. And so we were, delighted that those guys wanted to do the box set, and we had some stuff that had been unreleased, and we never really had enough to make a full record, and so. So we took some singles and some of the unreleased stuff, and we were able to make a 4th record with the box. So,
okay, yeah. It's I think the release schedule I know is definitely is a little bit wide, and there's a lot of years between things. It sounds like you guys really take your time to gestate and sort of like really, nothing is hurried. It sounds like one way or another.
Yeah, right. No, I guess my brother and I are pretty critical of each other and ourselves, and so it takes a while just because we shoot everything down constantly, and eventually we'll just shoot everything down to the point that we never really see anything again. But so far we managed to get some stuff through.
Well, I think that's a testimony to the quality that has endured over the years. Jumping to the second record for Transsyndicate, Beheaded. There's a fidelity shift there for sure, but it does seem to take a step into more of a much more subtle approach. I mean, I don't know if that has something to do with where you were at, if that was sort of just what you were, where you were, what you guys were working on in the moment. But it does feel like that is really the point where I started to notice like the real focus on dynamics and like just the patience really seemed to settle in terms of the space that is in the music.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, all the songs that were on What Fun Life Was were kind of fine-tuned by a band. There were always demos and everything, but when the band got together, everybody was always playing on those songs, with a couple of exceptions. And a lot of songs on Beheaded were written in a very different context. I was living in a small apartment in New York City at that point, and so a lot of songs didn't have drums, and because there was no way to put drums on them when I was recording them, and we just thought, well, they actually sound better without drums. And,
right.
And so, I guess necessity was sort of the driving force of some of that stuff. But and some of the songs that were on Beheaded could have been on the first record, but weren't quite, and maybe we left them out, if I'm remembering this correctly, because they didn't quite fit, but they helped to form the basis of the next record. And so the degree to which they didn't fit was also the degree to which I think the second record is different from the first, and maybe gave us a sense of direction.
Well, I'm going to play a track from that right now. I'm going to hear What's Missing from Beheaded, originally on 95 on Transsyndicate, also part of the 2014-2015 Numero Group retrospective of Bedhead. I'm speaking with Matt Kadane of Bedhead and the New Year, and let's play a track. And I just want to also remind you to call in at 607-319-5445. Help us during our fundraiser going on through the end of this coming week. Again, 607-319-5445. All right, that was Lepo Terra from Transaction De Novo, which goes down as the final Bedhead LP. I'm here with Matt Kadane, and I just want to check in with Studio B real quick. You guys, how did we do in there? Do we have anyone to thank?
Well, we have Kevin to thank for Pledge. And,
thank you, Kevin.
We hope that we get more.
All right. Yes, 607-319-5445 is the number to call. We'll be here till 1 o'clock today. We'll have the Joe Show coming up, who's got a special marathon theme. Let me jump back to Matt. And so that's the final Bedhead record. I know you have had EPs and things at the time, but it seems to me like going back and looking, people sort of mention that record the most out of in terms of the LPs anyway, from Bedhead's point of view.
Right.
And I mean, that track, it really, I just love that sort of the outro where the two of you and Bubba, that is like the guitars just go back and forth and really interweave, and it's a arresting moment. And I feel like the whole record's full of those kinds of things. And I know Albini recorded it,
right? And
I know that's a thing.
That's right.
So I don't know if that's why people reference that record, but what's your memories of making that?
We had some people who liked us, who I think were disappointed that we had gone to record with him, because maybe they thought it sounded different in ways they weren't into or something. And then maybe some, not that I'm really tuned into this stuff, but maybe some liked it more for that reason. We went to record with Albini in 95, I think, at his house, when he still had his studio at his house, and the room was super dry, and we recorded a couple of songs that ended up being on this record, the song More Than Ever and the song Extra Mundane, at his house. And we weren't crazy about the way that they sounded. We knew we wanted to re-record those songs, but we also knew he was building the studio, and so we thought, well, by the time we're ready to record the record, we'll go to his new studio. And there are two studios. There's Studio A, which is where we've done everything, and then there's Studio B, which is where we did this record, the last Bedhead record. And when we got there, we were just overwhelmed by the cavernousness of this one room, the live room. There was a dry room, and there's a really, really big live room, and it was way too much for us. And we got in this big fight. I mean, Steve is one of our closest friends now, but, at the time we were just bickering, and we thought, we're going to go somewhere else. We're going to find a studio on the way back to Texas. Doesn't matter where it is. Yeah, you're fired. But we kind of found a way to make it work, and some songs on the record are dry, and some songs are really kind of wet, like that one. So the quiet songs are very wet. There was nothing we could do to control. I mean, the ceilings in this room are 24 feet tall, but the footprint is actually pretty small. So it's everything goes up, and all the sound goes up. And then the dry room gave it a certain kind of character too. So I guess it's sort of like what I was saying earlier. It was another one of those moments where there were necessary conditions, but they ended up stimulating maybe some.
You work with what you have.
You work with what you have, and sometimes it's good to do things that you wouldn't have otherwise done.
Nice surprises come out of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, around that time, let me mention real quick, because I haven't mentioned this yet, there is a new Year record out as of last year, and Matt was nice enough to bring some copies of the CD to give away to everyone for this hour. Not everyone, but a few lucky people. So for people to call in and pledge, 607-319-5445, get in the running for the New Year Snow CD, as well as the daily prize, which is a $50 gift certificate to Autumn Leaves Bookstore on the Commons. I will get to that in a few minutes. Around that time is when you started transitioning to the new year. And I want to play in a few minutes the Matcha and Bedhead collaboration, because that's actually how I found out about you guys. Because I used to work at Jet Set Records as an intern, and then they hired me for a little while, and I knew about Matcha.
Yeah.
They were on the label. I'm like, well, who are the Bedhead guys? And then I went down the wormhole from there.
Yeah.
But what a great, perfectly one of those collaborations where both bands sort of equally shine through into a nice sort of summation of the sound. And I know you said you were long-time friends with those guys.
Long-time friends with them, yeah. My brother, who's older than I am, he's 2.5 years older, and Mish, who is the younger of the McKay brothers, went to junior high together, and so they've known each other since then. I've known, and then I knew them right after. I think I first met them when I was in junior high, but they were in high school at that point. So they're almost like our extra two brothers. Josh has played in the New Year quite a bit, and Mish and Bubba and I had a band a long time ago. And we've actually tried to make another record, but we only got a few songs into that, and that was itself now a really long time ago. But with this, Bubba and I got the songs started, sent them to them, and it was a collaboration insofar as there was an exchange at some point, but those we kind of each did our own thing and then tried to make it work together, and if it worked, just by the grace of God or something.
It definitely worked. I'm going to play, I know there's a lot of been talked about the Cher cover on this, but I want to jump to a different track on that, and that's around the time you sort of transitioned to the new year, so we'll come back and talk about that and get into the new year a bit, and we'll talk about the new record Snow. We have a call. Let's play something from the Matcha Love Bedhead collaboration from 2000, I believe it is. All right, that was Bedhead and Matcha with is it You and New, right? Oh, You and New Plastic I played, didn't I? Oh no, I did play. No, that was You and New Plastic.
That was, yeah.
I meant to play Hey Goodbye, but I love both.
Okay.
I did this earlier. I did not play What's Missing from Bedhead or Beheaded. I always do that, but I did play. What did I play?
Left Behind.
Life. Okay, my mistake there, but I did get the record right. Yeah. I'm just trying to do a few things at the same time here in the studio here with Matt. And again, 607 is the phone number. 607-319-5445 is the number to call. So yeah, we talked about the Matcha and Bedhead record there, that was around the time that the New Year started happening. I mean, I understand that the music is just a logical progression from Bedhead, but why was there a change? Was it just members, moving, or was it geography?
No, so Bedhead split up. We did a big tour and to support the last record that you played a song from, and at the end of that, I think there were just so many things kind of conspiring against us, and I wanted to go back to school, and so I just thought there was no other way that was going to work. And we were all such good friends, it never made sense for us to think about, even though Bubba and I wrote the songs and I guess kind of micromanage things, it still didn't make sense to think about us going on and using that name, because that name was, as much about the friendship as anything. And so, some time passed and we wanted to record again, and we didn't want to record just as the two of us. I think Corey Rusk, who ran Touch and Go, was going to, had said he was going to release the record, and I remember we didn't have a name, and we said, well, we could do it as the Kadane Brothers, and Corey, in his kind of inimitable voice, was like, well, I would be a lot less excited about releasing a record called the Kadane. So we thought, all right, well, we have to come up with a name. We came up with a name, and then I do end up playing a lot of drums on the records, but I didn't want to play drums, and so Chris Brokaw, who was a friend of mine, came up as a guy who could help us, and great drummer, and he could help us in the studio. And so, then we thought, well, if Chris is going to help, then maybe we can find somebody to play bass who would help. Mm-hmm. And Mike D'Onofrio, who plays bass, was also a good friend of mine. And so all of a sudden we had 4 people in the band, and then we asked this guy, Peter Schmidt, who had been a regular member of Bedhead, to play guitar. And so the band just kind of came into existence almost accidentally. It
just felt like, well, let's do something, a new name, a new start, or to a sense. And
right.
Newness Ends, the first record for Touch and Go, and there's definitely when I going back and hearing Bedhead, I so like I was saying, I heard this first, but you could really feel like it was a, not a complete departure, but like a shift, to a different set. It's more bombastic, I'd say, and really a real sense of immediacy. I mean, on these songs.
Well, a couple of these songs Bedhead was playing. Okay. So this would have been the next Bedhead record. Gasoline, not that it matters, but there are a couple of songs that we were playing on the last tour that we did. And, had it been the 4th Bedhead record, I think it would have sounded like this. Which is not to say there's not a difference in the way that it sounds, but it had less to do with the new band than with what was just sort of going on in our heads.
Okay. Well, I want to just let's jump to a song right now, because it really it's the song that really crystallized for me from the get-go, listening to this record, Reconstruction. I still, to this day, the final outro of that song just kills me every time. It was just a perfect moment of everything just coming together, the guitar interplay, the drumming, the fills, it just really kills. And I want to play that right now. 5445 here with Matt Kadane of the New Year and Bedhead and many other things. We just heard Sinking Ship from The End Is Near, and Reconstruction before that from Newness Ends. We were just talking a little bit about like your what was happening with The End Is Near. Sort of a weird time, I think, 2004, but not quite as weird as now. Right. And I don't know, that record has it feels like the lyrics are shifting. They seem like they're getting a little more personal, perhaps. Is that possible? Or
yeah. I think so. I mean, maybe they're always so personal for me. It's hard for me to say, but no, yeah. When the last song was playing, we were talking about what was happening in the outside world, and it was the Bush years, and it was sort of right after 9/11 and all that, mm-hmm. and it's quaint to think that it seemed like the world was coming to an end then.
Sure.
Yeah. We had it good, but yeah, I do think some of that stuff figures into that record.
Cool. Well. It took that one, sort of it seemed to bring in a lot of the nuance, and like I mentioned, Newness Ends sort of felt like a more bombastic record, and this one brought back in some of the subtleties and things that I found on Bedhead records, but I just want to jump real quick to the third record, because big introduction there is this. You seemed like you were on the piano a lot more on that one.
Yeah.
And is that, had you always played piano, or was that something you just sort of picked up and started writing on?
I had always played piano, but it wasn't until we moved out here to the Finger Lakes that I could get my old piano back, which my mom had been keeping for me down in Texas. And so I got it back, and I was really excited to be playing it again. And it does figure into this stuff in a big way. And I was playing with Silkworm a bunch and playing piano with them, so I was probably getting more into it that way too.
Right.
But this was a record made after we moved out here.
Yeah, it's the company I get. I want to play that in just a second. it feels like there's a few songs. It feels like sort of like feeling lost at a party and things like that, and which everyone can relate to, I think, in some respect. And again, this record, hearing a lot of these songs on piano and things, brought on a whole new direction for the band, I think. And we'll talk about it in a minute for Snow. Well, let's talk about it right now. I mean, It sounds like you played. Is it Fender Rhodes on that, or is it?
There is a lot of that on that record, on the new record, and not entirely because the studio where we recorded had a really nice Rhodes, because I was imagining a lot of stuff on that before we were recording there, but it is, I think, probably too, there is a degree to which, sometimes you're in the studio and you hear the way something sounds and it sounds better than you imagine, and you think, oh, we should just do a lot more with this because this is, really
working.
Capturing something working. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's piano on that too. And I guess the other conscious decision we made with the new record was to have a drier sound, probably a drier sound.
Okay.
So there's that.
Okay, and Snow, I mean, is that just a plain old reference to life here, or is it just the idea of being in winter?
Like, all the songs were about, not because of some grand design, but just probably, for unconscious reasons, all the songs were about snow, and so we thought, what else should we call it? And then, we just imagined everybody would think it was about cocaine or something.
Hadn't occurred to me, but okay.
No, and it's more about actual snow.
So obviously everybody's Bubba's still in Texas, I imagine, and and everybody's in different places.
Yeah.
So you guys getting together, I mean, you were writing across state lines, and then at some point you convened to be like, all right, let's make a record.
Yeah. We send stuff back and forth. We used to send stuff by cassette back and forth. Now we do it much more easily, electronically. Although we were doing it by cassette until fairly recently. I mean, in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. As soon as we get. We struggle to get the 9th song if the songs are relatively long, or the 10th song if they're not all that long. Whatever the magic number is for us to justify an LP, we do kind of struggle to get there. And as soon as we get there, we're.
Yeah, like this sounds great. I mean, it all sounds as though, I know you recorded it in different places, different times, but it does all sound quite cohesive. It all makes sense. There's enough new elements, like I mentioned, the Fender Rhodes, but it all still seems to come from that same place, and it seems comforting. And I think the reaction to the record was great. I mean, I was like, I couldn't believe there was a new New Year record last year, and I was just as happy to hear that everything was like sounded the way I remembered, but also like with a nice new sort of feel to it.
All right, cool. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
All right, I'm gonna play something from that in a minute, but I referenced the company I get. I'm gonna play that, and then we're gonna play The Last Fall off the New Year record, the latest record from the New Year, Snow. All right, that was The Last Fall from Snow. And real quick, you did 4 videos for this record. What was the story there?
We did. A friend of ours, Kevin McAllister, who's a great filmmaker, wanted to make a video for that song, and he kind of made it about these people he had gotten to know in his neighborhood, and sort of their story, and he thought the song kind of spoke to that, and so he made that. And then my brother made a couple of the videos with all this old footage that he got hold of, and so we just thought, what the hell, we might as well make this stuff, rather than if someone's going to upload it to YouTube, maybe we can kind of control the visual.
Right. It's that whole the video for The Last Fall, if you can check that out. The whole little mini film essentially. We posted that on the WRFI website when we announced this interview, so you can find that there. But so I must have missed it. Did you guys tour for Snow, or is there anything in the works at all?
No, not
maybe
yet. Maybe not yet.
Okay,
I got to work myself up.
Okay,
to I'm not in the right state of mind.
Well, it's something you should think about. If I say so myself, and I did. So we're finishing up with Matt Kadane of the New Year. We're going to have the Joe Show coming up. You're listening to WRFI Watkins Glen, W201 CD Ithaca. Let me just make an adjustment here. And we're going to go out. I wanted to mention, I know I didn't get to talk about the Hell House soundtrack. Go ahead and check that out. The film is from 2003 documentary about the Pentecostal hell houses. That's a tease. But I did want to mention and go out real quick on Overseas with David Bazan and Will Johnson and your brother.
Yeah.
One I completely missed, and just my friend JT actually turned me on to. I was like, wait, how did I miss that? How did that come about?
They're old friends of ours. Will I've known since we were, since I had just turned 21 and he was still underage, and I would buy him drinks. And Bazan we've known for now 15 years, and we've all toured a lot together. And at some point we said it would be really fun to have a band. I think at the time I was just like I am right now. I'd lost my voice, and we were having to play a lot, and I just was thinking, man, it'd be so great if these two guys with incredible voices were doing all the singing. And then
so you do no singing on this?
No.
Wow.
No.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
No, and I loved their voices. My brother loved. We thought it'd be great to kind of participate in writing the songs and all that. But then they would do the rest, or they would sing. And we made this record several years ago. Just had a ton of fun making it. We're almost done. We're like 95% done with the next record. That should be coming out. We hope maybe in 6 or 7 months.
Oh, okay. See, there we go. That's something that's cooking.
There's something cooking. Yeah. And I think Overseas might play some, but yeah, this is it just came about that way.
All right. I'd like to play a track from that, and we're going to finish up here. Matt, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah,
it's real great.
Pleasure to be here.
We're going to hear Help with 2 L's from the Overseas record, 2013, I believe. Yeah,
maybe.
I think that's why I missed it, because that's when we were moving here and all sorts of craziness.
Okay.
All right, here's that, and thanks once again.
All right, thanks.